It'll be the largest, most powerful rocket man has ever built, if it's built. At any rate, that's how NASA is describing plans for a monster new spacecraft, which could put astronauts into space in as few as 10 years. So how do we pay for that? And check this out. As you can see, the ship looks a lot like the old Apollo rockets that put man on the moon rather than the recently retired space shuttle. That's because this thing is not designed for trips into orbit. NASA tells us this ship that could one day put humans on Mars or on an asteroid. But get this, some of the estimates put the cost of the system at $35 billion, and you know how estimates go. But NASA's administrator says the agency has done its homework.
The selection of the vehicle needed to transport our astronauts into deep space is one of the most important decisions to be made this decade. And it requires a major commitment on the part of the American taxpayer. And that's why the administration insisted on doing the due diligence required so that we could get it right.
NASA projects, however, NASA projects, however, are notorious for coming in way over budget. And a major component of the plan is not the exploration of space, but jobs here on Earth. Trace Gallagher's live in Los Angeles. Talk about a stimulus. We could get to Mars or to an asteroid, and for what exactly?
Well, yeah, and the whole thing is, Shep, if it goes as planned, which it seldom does in NASA, they could get to Mars or asteroids by the late 2020s, maybe orbit Mars. But by the early 2030s, they're saying that we could actually land on Mars. Take another look, if you would, at the SLS, because it really does look like the Saturn V rocket that used in the Apollo missions. But look at the sides there. Two solid rocket boosters, very much like the space shuttle. NASA would like to change those out down the line to use liquid tanks on the sides of that. And at the very tip there is what they call the Orion crew vehicle. It's designed to explore space for anywhere from 6 days to 900 days. And you would need that because it takes about 275 days just to get to Mars. Here's the Texas Senator Kay Bailey Hutchison, who supports this. Listen.
We are going to continue to be the world leader in finding out what are the capabilities out there that we haven't even discovered yet. Is there something in energy? Is there something in national security? Is there something in the geophysical on Mars or on an asteroid that would help us here on Earth?
We, of course, should note that Hutchison from Texas and Senator Bill Nelson from Florida also supports this, but Texas and Florida would be the big benefactors as far as jobs go, Shep.
It wasn't but a few weeks ago that we were talking about all these private companies in the private sector taking over what the government used to do, and everybody seemed all fired up about it, and now there's this.
Yeah, and the private companies say they're the ones that should get this $35 billion because they could do this thing cheaper and faster, even though not a single private company has laid out a plan for deep space exploration. They call this NASA plan a $35 billion boondoggle that is meant to save jobs in Texas and in Florida. The private space companies believe that NASA has fallen way behind. Listen.
We've had 500 astronauts in the history of man. We should be having tens of 20s of thousands of astronauts. We should have microgravity research projects left and right for cancer, for AIDS, for obesity, for bone density, for diabetes. We should have habitats up there.
Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic is scheduled to start sending space tourists into space sometime in 2012. Shep.
Trace Gallagher, live in L.A. Trace, thanks. So what do you get when you mix an American